And we're back. Okay. Aloha. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Let's Talk Story session for May. Thank you, everybody, by the way, for accommodating. We did make a change on the date. So thank you for showing up to this one. One of the biggest concerns I continue to hear from residents across Hawaii Kai is the rise in the cost of living, our taxes, our insurance. But here in Hawaii Kai, we also have many kupuna living on fixed incomes, which makes these conversations especially important. Tonight, we're going to be talking about everybody's favorite subject, taxes. There were some interesting bills going through the legislature. The main one we're going to talk about tonight is Senate Bill 3125, having to do with the income tax. I won't steal the thunder, but if many of you remember, back in 2024, Act 46 was passed, which was applauded as some of the largest tax cuts we've had in Hawaii. They were going to be rolled out over the next 6 years from 2024 to 2030. But because of changes on the federal level, Hawaii is now responsible for taking care of more of their own programs. The governor asked to pause the tax credits. So Bill 3125 essentially does that. I'll let Tom and Ted explain further onto those. But without further ado, I will give an introduction as soon as my phone loads back up. Okay. Both of our speakers tonight gave countless hours in testimony during committee hearings this year, especially on bills dealing with taxes and finance, as well as economic development. Their insight is something I relied heavily upon when it came time to vote on these different bills in committee. So joining us tonight, on the end over here, we have Tom Yamachika, president of the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. And here, Ted Kefalas, did I pronounce that correct? Ted Kefalas from Grassroots Institute. Tom has spent many years helping residents, businesses, and policymakers better understand Hawaii's tax system and the real-world impacts of legislation coming out of the Capitol. He's widely respected for his deep knowledge of state tax policy and his ability to explain complicated issues in a way that everyday people can understand, such as myself. It's greatly appreciated. Ted serves as director of strategic campaigns at the Grassroots Institute, where he works on issues focused on affordability, economic freedom, government accountability, and making Hawaii a more affordable place to live and raise a family. He's also spent a tremendous amount of time educating both the public and lawmakers on legislation impacting taxes, housing, and overall cost of living in Hawaii. I'm very grateful that both of them could join us tonight, and we're in for a great presentation. With that, I'd like to please welcome Tom Yamachika and Ted Kefalas.
Thank you.
Hey, Ted, you want to start on this one, and I'll heckle you when it comes to appropriate time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess I'll start.
Then he'll do that to me.
It's a give and take. No, so I'll just start kind of with some major themes, I guess, that we noticed during session. Rep. Gideon mentioned, lawmakers introduced a lot of different tax proposals this year as a response to some federal cuts that we've seen. And, as a result, thank you so much. As a result, legislators, they kept claiming, right, that we didn't have enough money in the budget in order to fund essential services. But that's not necessarily true. The only way they said that we could pay for these services is to raise everybody's taxes. And so we saw just a litany of tax bills, whether it was the income tax bill that you mentioned, there was a proposal on capital gains, there was a conveyance tax proposal, you name it, there was a tax proposed on it this session. Thankfully, though, all of those tax hike proposals died, except for the one we're going to talk about here shortly. At Grassroots, our main focus is really trying to keep a lot of these taxes from passing, because our mindset is that one of the only things that legislators can really have a direct impact on when it comes to affordability is taxes. All the other stuff is fine and good, but if you really want to make that immediate impact, it's lowering taxes on people. But that didn't stop legislators from trying to propose these revenue generating bills. And, there were a lot of tax the rich policies that we saw this year. And so, I think this election year, like I said, you'll hear a lot about people wanting to address the cost of living. But in reality, a lot of, not you, but your colleagues, their initial gut reaction when times get tough is raise taxes. It's not tighten the belt. It's not try to reduce spending. It's how can we pull more revenue? And so, that's what we're going to kind of talk about today, some of those bills that were proposed. And I want to, before we get too in depth into it, Tom, did you want to talk about any themes that you might have noticed during session?
Yeah, one of the things that we were kind of going after is the state hoarding money that they already have, that they already took from us. We know, for example, that Senator Donna Kim had kind of ferreted out that there was one special fund in the University of Hawaii. It's called the University of Hawaii Tuition and Fee Special Fund, that had $430 million in it, unencumbered, which means that it wasn't spoken for as of the end of the last fiscal year. So she tried to attack it. University was kind of like jumping up and down and saying, "Yeah, we need that money. We need that money." And Donna was saying, well, "For what?" And nobody could really come up with a good answer to that. But it survived. I mean, the $430 million wasn't touched. Things, so somebody either from the university or somewhere came in with a big watering can and kind of went to the back room and did their work, and stuff happens. So it didn't pass. It did not pass. So they kept the money. Yes.
Yeah.
So there was a raid bill, and I'll talk about that later. But one of the things that we were going after is, hey, we got to identify the money that we already have that Rep. Gideon and others apparently don't know about, because a lot of people take great pains to keep it well hidden, and if we could actually put some of that where the legislators could do some good with it, then of course, the more of that happens, the less gets pulled out of our pockets anew, right? So
doing some good with it is that might be a stretch.
Well, or at least not doing anything bad.
So we can talk on about some of the bills that are on governor's desk. There's really only two major tax bills that are on his desk. The first one is Senate Bill 3125 that we talked about. So this originally was proposed to eliminate all of the tax cuts, I guess, from 2024. So if you remember, Governor Green, maybe like November, December timeframe, maybe around November, December timeframe, was making public appearances saying this is only going to impact rich people. Well, the bill comes out and, well, shocker, it actually pauses everybody's tax cuts. So this bill went through a lot of different iterations.
And not just pause. It would wipe them out entirely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you look at a VCR and you say pause, you would expect that at some point you can press play again and it'll tick up where it left off. But what the bill as proposed was a stop button, because it wouldn't continue. The scheduled tax decreases would just get wiped out. Everything would be repealed.
Yeah, exactly. And so this was billed as a pause, but I think, Tom, you mentioned it in testimony that it's really an elimination of the tax credits or tax cuts, excuse me. So I think this bill was probably the defining bill of the legislature this year. It went through a lot of different iterations. I think there was a House version that proposed keeping the standard deduction increases, but they would pause the rates. They would also hike the top three brackets 1% each. The Senate was trying to hold strong to their credit. They kept proposing to not get rid of any of the tax cuts. They wanted to keep everything as is. And so, as things go in the legislature, there was a bit of a back and forth in conference committee. I think it later evolved into a bill that preserved, most of the tax cuts. We did some calculations, back of the napkin math, and 98% of people would still continue to see some form of a tax cut from their 2024 levels. And so, we think that's a great win. Obviously, we would have loved to preserve it for everybody. But, this just, given the climate, it was not possible. So what they ended up with is keeping the tax cuts for everybody under 175,000 as a single filer, or 350,000 as a joint filer. They paused the tax cuts for the brackets above that. But I want to make it clear that pause still results in a cut for certain people because these are marginal tax rates. So it's really your first 175,000 or your first 350,000 that is going to continue to see a cut. Just because you maybe make $400,000 does not mean that you miss out on the cuts entirely. And I think that's really important, again, that the majority of people will see those cuts. Sure, Natalie.
Yeah, net income tax is imposed on taxable income. Yeah, so
sure. You want to take this one, Tom?
Yeah, sure. So the question about was whether this was on gross income or taxable income. The income tax system does give you deductions, unlike the GE tax system that doesn't. So it's on taxable income or a kind of a net income, and that's why it's called the net income tax. So you get income, you get deductions, and A minus B gives you what you pay tax on. And what we mean by a marginal rate system is that you have different brackets of income that different tax rates are applied to. So, like let's say the first $50,000 is taxed at 6%, and then the next $100,000 is taxed at 7%. If you're making within that second bracket, you still get the benefit of the lower rates for the income that you make. The first $50,000 you make. So that second tax rate is marginal in that it only applies to what's in that bracket.
Excess, yeah.
Yeah. So the way the new tax bill works is it keeps the rates and the brackets for people making 350,000 joint and higher. But there are I don't want to say lower rates, but there are larger brackets at lower rates for people under 350K. And everybody gets the benefit of that. Whether you make more or less than 350K, it really doesn't matter because the lower brackets are there. We have a marginal rate system, so everybody gets the benefits of the lower rates. And then when you get to the higher income levels, that's when the higher rates kick in.
Yeah, and so this bill also dealt with some business related tax credits too, namely the solar renewable energy tax credit. And so what's going to happen, I think the final version of the bill is going to phase that out. It also puts a cap of $40 million on that tax credit. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the only people now that can claim that tax credit are people under the $175,000 and $350,000 threshold.
Okay, so what Ted said is right. Under this bill, Senate Bill 3125, if you've got a photovoltaic system or a wind system coming in, there are going to be new rules that are coming in, and the new rules are basically going to kick in 2027. So in 2027, the only way you can get a solar credit is if you make less than 350,000 joint, 175,000 single.
Mm-hmm.
If you make over that, no credit. Okay, and whether you the way you determine whether you're in 2026 or 2027 is the project's placed in service date, which means when you turn it on. Okay, it's not when you sign the contract. It's not when you pay your money to the solar installer. It's when the project gets turned on. So that's the date you have to pay attention to figure out whether either the 2026 rules like they are today, or the 2027 rules, which includes the $40 million cap statewide on the amount of credit that's allowed, and whether these income limits kick in. That's the date you have to watch.
Yeah, and I mean there were some other tax credits that got phased out, but I think when you look at the vast majority of where the money is going, it was mainly going to that renewable energy tax credit. So I want to, before we move on, I mean, this is obviously an important bill. It's something that I think has a lot of little details, and I want to allow, any kind of questions while we are, kind of on this topic, and see if there's anything that we can answer. Maybe not on your individual tax returns, but, on this bill.
Yeah, and in terms of the piddly little details, I do have a handout that we can give to folks, so you can get that handout started. Please take 2 pages and pass it to the next one. I think we have copies for everybody here. So take 2 pages, pass them on. And this handout that we've prepared describes not only this bill but the other major tax bills that passed during this session. We won't be able to talk about all of them tonight, but if you have questions about some, and we have time, certainly we'll get to them if you want.
Just wanted to comment really quick on the tax credits that were being sunset, especially for the solar industry. I'm getting over 20 emails a day from people in the solar industry telling me how it's really going to make a big impact. They're saying people are going to lose jobs. Another tax credit, which I was concerned about them sunsetting. I'm a small business owner, and there's the capital goods tax credit as well. So maybe Ted, you could talk about that a little bit and how that might affect small businesses.
Yeah, what the capital goods tax credit is if you're any kind of business and you buy something tangible and you place it into service, like you buy a computer, right? A very long time ago, it was decided that they wanted to give businesses a break for the 4% tax that was being levied upon it. So the 4% is a credit that businesses get when they place that computer into service. They get 4% back, and it's a refundable credit. So even if the business isn't paying tax, the state will write them a check for that amount, given that they've already paid the 4% when they bought it anyway.
That one kind of hits close to home because, like I mentioned, I'm a small business owner. I a lot of people who I know own small businesses, and I did vote no on 3125 because I believe that the state should keep their promise to the people. A lot of other legislators were campaigning on, hey, we helped pass some of the largest tax cuts in the history of Hawaii, and now they're pausing them. I'm glad where 3125 ended up. It did preserve the tax cuts for the majority of the people. But like Ted mentioned, it is pausing for some of the tax brackets. It did create a new tax bracket of $1 million and above at 13%. But this is my first session, and I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of the legislators, build relationships with everybody. Very few of them have real world business. I don't want to say real world business experience, but are business owners, and I know a lot of them have a great desire to do good, but without that knowledge of balancing costs and understanding when things get tight for a business, we can't just raise our prices. We have to first look internally and see where we can cut spending, where we can be more efficient. And the reason I voted no is because I believe the government should do that. We should look internally first, look at areas where we can cut our spending, be more efficient, cut out waste, fraud. But yeah, sorry, I'll give it back to you, Ted. Something I'm passionate about. So, sorry, I'll give you the microphone so you can repeat the question, just so everybody knows what we're talking about.
I'm just trying to understand why you voted no specifically. It sounds like this income tax cuts was only going to affect 2% of the population. Otherwise, it was going to preserve cuts, but also I guess it's affecting some of the business tax deductions. And
yeah, and it is going to have a strong effect on the solar industry. But ultimately, my job is to represent the people of Hawaii Kai. Hawaii Kai is the second highest income earners. So a lot of the people that my responsibility is to represent will be affected. I did receive a lot of emails from people asking to vote no on it. But there were a lot of changes in 3125 from the House version, from the Senate version. So ultimately, my vote was to vote in the best interest of the people of the district I'm meant to represent. So there were only 3 representatives that voted no. And our 3 districts are the 3 top income earners. So it passed, obviously.
Okay, we have another question in the front. Over there.
This handout. Could you please just explain the handout? Like, I don't understand the status. Like the first one, the House is crossed out, but the Senate is still valid. So does that mean that the bill died?
Yeah, typically what happens is whenever a bill is introduced, it's introduced both in the House and the Senate, and they try to kind of play a game of, well, who's going to cross over first, or sometimes they both do, sometimes one of them dies. And in this case, I've indicated the companion bill, which is the House Bill 2306, and it's struck through, which means that it did die.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what it means.
So all of the ones on the first page are dead.
One version of them is dead. If both versions were dead, they wouldn't be on this list at all.
But if only one version is dead, then they are still alive now because the legislature is closed.
Yeah, the legislature is done. So what we've listed here is all of the bills that have gone up to the governor's desk. Okay. So these have gone all the way to the end. For Senate Bill 3125, that went all the way to the end. House Bill 2306 is where it was introduced in the House. That one didn't pass, but it doesn't matter because Senate Bill 3125 had the same stuff in it, and that one is going to the governor's desk. So that's what a lot of these marks mean.
A lot of bills will have a companion bill. So like there might be a bill. A lot of bills have companion bills. So say the House introduces a bill, the Senate might have a companion bill, which is similar wording, but as it moves to the legislature, different amendments can be added. But usually what happens in committees, I notice they'll choose either the House or the Senate bill to be the vehicle for that, that law that they're trying to ultimately pass.
On page 2, all of those bills are dead.
No, on page 2, the companion bills, which is on the right column, those are all dead. The bill numbers, which is in the second column, those all passed. They're all going to the governor.
Okay, so final means that it passed and it's going to the governor.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So the question was, how long does the governor have to decide and sign these bills or veto them? He has 60 days from when they get to his desk. There's also a deadline, I believe, of June 30th that he has to include it in a list. Hawaii is interesting, where they require the governor to come out with an intent to veto list. So he essentially has to send a memo to the legislature letting them know all of the bills that he intends to veto. Now, not all of those end up getting vetoed. It just means that he wants to do a little bit more due diligence and, look at them a little bit harder. So he has until June 30th to come out with that list. And then I believe it's July 15th to actually sign or veto the legislation.
Yeah, but if June 30th comes and goes and the bill that you're interested in is not on the veto list, then it's going to become law in one way or the other.
Correct.
With or without the governor's signature.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, is the governor doesn't necessarily have to sign the bill for it to become law. The only thing that really he has to do is veto it. If he does nothing with it, it will still become law. So any other questions on this income tax bill before we move along? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So the question was, can we make a difference and write to Governor Green to change his mind? And I think that's certainly something that, groups are going to be looking at and they're going to be pushing for. I know, Rep, you mentioned that the solar industry has already started that. I'm sure if you're getting 20, I'm sure Governor's getting 100 plus. So that's something that he's already hearing about. And I'm sure, if you were to write him on this or any of the issues, whether it's a bill that we're going to talk about today or another bill that you've seen, that will get read and will get taken into account when he's making his decision.
Yeah, both Ted's organization and mine will be working on comments that are going to go to the governor's office. So you can do the same. And if you feel passionately about something, please do.
No, it would become law. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the second year in the biennium, so bills do not carry over to next year, even if they don't pass this year. So this is kind of do or die.
Right. Okay, so now I'll let you talk more about this one, Tom. We were not as involved as you on this HB 2329.
Okay, 2329 is the bill to adopt the federal changes, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So every year, by law, the Department of Taxation introduces a bill to consider some of the changes that are made in federal law. So Hawaii and federal law look enough alike so that it's easier to comply with both sets of laws, because we have to comply with both sets of laws. And it's easier to comply if the tax systems are similar. So that's what we call conformity. So this is the conformity bill. And what it says is that whether we do or do not pick up some of the provisions that are going to happen at the federal level. So one of the things that happens that passed at the federal level is no tax on tips. You may have heard that in the news. We are going to pick that up. Another of Mr. Trump's campaign promises was no tax on overtime. We are not picking that up. So it may be deductible or excludable for federal purposes, but we are still going to tax it. The same things are going to happen for deduction for car loan interest. The feds will allow the deduction. We will not, because we're not picking that up. We don't allow the enhanced standard deduction for seniors. That's because we have our own system and we double the personal exemptions instead. So we have our own way of dealing with that. There is also a a very interesting provision. It's called the P's limitation. And what it does is it takes the itemized deductions that you have and it eats away at them. If you make more than a certain amount of income, it starts eating away at them until you can only take 20% of the itemized deductions that you otherwise would be able to take. So it's a really the feds had this provision in earlier years. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in Trump 1.0, it got rid of it or suspended it, which we didn't conform to. Trump 2.0, they reinstated the P's limitation, but at a much more taxpayer-friendly rate. The under the federal law, the most you can get dinged is 2/37 of the amount that you're eligible to take as itemized deductions. We kept the 80%. So in Hawaii, you can still get 80% disallowed. We do not conform to full expensing and bonus depreciation. Those are business tax provisions. We have never conformed to them, probably never will. A lot of states don't because it costs too much. And there are some other provisions. The bill is humongous. We have a 75-page analysis of what the One Big Beautiful Bill Act does, whether we conform or not. That's available on our website if you want to see it. But I'm not gonna put you all to sleep here going through all of that. So that's House Bill 2329.
And I want to see if anybody has any questions about that bill as well. Natalie.
Yeah, so if that gets passed, it's effective for 26 or 27?
It's generally effective for, yeah. So the question is, when's the bill effective? And it's generally effective if it's signed, and it probably will be, for next year. So taxable years beginning after 12/31/2026. So in 2027 and afterward. It's a question up here.
My question had to do with the overtime tax and state not going along with the federal on that. Why was that acceptable?
So the question is, why are we not conforming to no tax on overtime? Probably because of cost. They made a revenue estimate and said, well, this costs too much, so we're not going to do it.
As part of that criteria, I always thought that the more money we get to keep, the more tax the government, the more buying and purchasing power, the more revenues get generated. Is that true?
Okay, so the question is, well, what about the philosophy that the less tax you impose, the more people spend, and the more people spend, the more the government makes that way? And I think that's really a philosophical difference. Different legislators have different ways of attacking that, because it really comes down to a mix between how much you impose in general excise tax versus how much you impose in income tax versus how much you impose in conveyance tax or hotel room tax or everything else. You have all these levers that are constantly being pushed and pulled to run the government and not tick off as many people as possible.
Sure.
So I didn't know we could decide differently from what the president said. So when did that start? Has it been going on forever?
Well,
Yeah.
The question is, since when could we do something in our tax laws that different from what the president did? Well, we got two different governments. So the state of Hawaii can impose whatever tax it wants, within constitutional limits, and the feds can impose whatever tax they want within constitutional limits, and we both do. So there is no requirement that we have an income tax. Some states don't. There's no requirement that we follow the federal. Some states don't. We decide to follow them in certain material aspects, so it's easier to comply with, to file your tax return.
Yeah, and so what Tom is really like, what he mentioned earlier is that conformity aspect of it. And so, you have your federal income taxes, you have your state income taxes, and on certain things, it is beneficial to have conformity between the two, so that the state isn't taxing tips while the federal government isn't. It just makes it easier for people to be able to keep up with what's going on and be able to keep up with those two tax payments.
When did it start? When did we become a state? 1959. Yeah, maybe even earlier, because when we were the territory of Hawaii, we had taxes. When we were the Kingdom of Hawaii, we had taxes. Well, obviously, we didn't have to follow the feds at that time.
I just have two quick questions. Do you have any visibility on the rail and tax structure on that, and also the state retirement system expectations? When I last started raising my name on the whole, I was just curious, is that sitting dormant, or is it increasing, or what's going on there? I don't even know if you have visibility.
Yeah, so at least when it comes to like the question was about the tax on rail, and at least for that, there was actually a proposal this year coming from the counties that was looking to extend that GET surcharge for rail, but that got abandoned relatively quickly. So I believe that surcharge lasts until 2030, and they're probably going to revisit that in future sessions. I can almost guarantee you.
Like next year.
Yeah. I mean, and so we'll talk.
Next year isn't an election year.
Yeah, exactly. And so, we're going to talk now about some of the bills that died over session. And so we say dead for now because these bills come up year after year after year. There's always going to be a bill on conveyance tax. There's always going to be a bill to increase capital gains tax. And so these things are not necessarily new. But at least for right now, they are not moving anywhere. And so the first one is Senate Bill 3028, which would change the conveyance tax. And the conveyance tax is charged on real estate transactions. This would have created a major shift in the Hawaii tax structure when it comes to the conveyance tax. What it was proposing was to slightly lower the conveyance tax on properties under, throughout session, the bill changed. So it, under 1.7 million, then under 2 million. But what ended up happening was a astronomical hike on properties above that number. And so, as you all know, in this district, a house that is 1.7 million may not be anything special. It may just look like an average house. And especially in a year or two, as we've seen with inflation and whatnot, I mean, these are going to be regular run-of-the-mill homes that are going to get caught up in this excessive tax. The other thing is this bill would have looked to divert. So typically conveyance tax is charged as an administrative tax. And so what that means is the revenue that's pulled from the conveyance tax is used to pay for the administration of that tax, but not any additional revenues. This would have double or tripled the amount of revenue coming from that. And the money would have gone directly to Hawaiian Homelands, which, I can appreciate what Hawaiian Homelands is trying to do and trying to get in the case of a perpetual revenue source. But that bill, unfortunately, I don't think was the right answer. It eliminated a lot of oversight there, a lot of legislative oversight. If they were to could have just had a blank checkbook every year from the conveyance tax. And it's something that, again, would have really impacted certain areas of the island way more so than others. So we oppose that bill. We think that taxing housing transactions, especially during a housing affordability crisis, is maybe not the best move, because those costs just get baked into the cost of the home.
Yeah, and if you want to, you see an illustration of how much, it was tough to follow a lot of these bills, including this one, because through the session, the bills had a lot of blanks in them. But when they put numbers in, the numbers were astonishing. Right now, the top conveyance tax rate is 1.25%. The top tax rate under one of the versions of Senate Bill 3028 was 9%. 1.25 to 9. That's what kind of dramatic increase we were talking about.
Yeah. No, I thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. I mean, again, we struggle with such limited housing supply and extremely high prices. And so it just seems counterintuitive to try to add additional costs to that. So, I mean, at least from our perspective at Grassroot, we're much more, we think lawmakers should really be focused on things like regulatory reform and permitting reform before they start trying to tax their way out of the affordability and housing crisis. And so I know we don't have too much time. And so a lot of these bills, since they died, I want to we can touch on them, and then we can maybe take some questions afterwards. This bill, HB 2010, creates a wealth asset tax. And it wasn't just this bill. There were, gosh, Tom, how many bills do you think that we're talking about wealth asset tax? 5 or 6 different ones that I remember seeing?
Not this year, but I think there was one this year, but there were some others, and it's not just a Hawaii state effort. The people in certain parts of the political spectrum were introducing wealth asset tax bills in other states like California and Washington, and this is significant because it's a tax not on what you make, but it's on what you have. Think about that. And it's a year-to-year tax, so it's what you have this year, and you have to pay on what you have next year, and you have to pay tax again on what you have the following year, and it goes on and on.
Yeah, I mean, on the wealth, this is on your personal wealth.
Yeah, so it's I think 5% on wealth over a certain dollar amount. So yeah, I mean, in year one, it would be 5% on what you have over X amount. Second year, it's 5% of what you have over X amount, assuming you have anything left.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, our big concern is that this is going to just further discourage entrepreneurship, investment. I mean, Hawaii, as Rep mentioned, being a business owner, is already such a difficult place to do business. When you see those, CNBC or I think they do the best states to do business rankings, and Hawaii is always, in the bottom 2. We can't even make it into the top 40. I don't think in my lifetime.
Yeah, actually, and can I go back to the income tax for just a second? Because there's one thing, and I know Rip Gideon had mentioned being a small business. A lot of people here in this district and in Hawaii generally are small business owners, and you pay individual income tax because you're in an LLC or you're in a partnership or you're a sole proprietor, so you pay individual income tax rates. Now, the federal code has a provision that gives small business owners like that a break because of the difference between the corporate income tax rate and the individual income tax rate. It's called Section 199A. We've been recommending that the state pick this up, but they never did. So it's maybe perhaps one thing you might want to look at next year, and that is, conformity to 199A. This is and even in Hawaii, we have a big difference between the individual income tax rate and the corporate rate. Our maximum corporate rate is 6.4%. Our maximum individual rate is now 13%, but it used to be 11%. That's a big difference, and I think it's worth looking at. So sorry to break the flow here. But
No, you're good. And so the other one, and we did not testify on this bill, so you're the expert here, but this is House Bill 2030, which would establish a new tax on car sales.
Yeah, that bill would have basically put a surcharge on the GET for car sales, both new and used. It would depend on the mileage, the MPG rating of the car that is being sold, and it wouldn't apply to alternative fuel vehicles or EVs, but it would apply to the gas guzzlers, so to speak. We don't know what they were thinking about because all the rates in the bill were blank.
Yeah.
In all versions of the bill, everything was blank, so we have no idea what they were talking about. So we're glad this one was dead.
And this is something that both Tom's organization and ours at Grassroot, we talk about a lot, is the blankety blank bills that we see. And Natalie, I see you kind of smiling because you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so what legislators do is they will put in a bill that just says it's about income tax or about the conveyance tax or whatever, and they'll just put blanks. So you don't actually know, is it a tax hike? Is it a tax, cut? Is it, what's going to happen here until right at the last moment at conference committees when the bill comes out and, there's numbers that oftentimes no one's ever seen before. That was even the case with some of the, this and the blankety blank issue was a little bit different, but I was laughing with Rep. Gideon about the income tax bill, and that nobody, even after they passed it out of conference committee, nobody had an actual version of what the bill said for like 2 whole days, I think. So, there was just this like air of mystery. And I remember running into a couple legislators and, they just kind of said, oh, well, I don't know. It'll be posted at some point. And you just think, is this really how our democracy is supposed to operate? So, another bill that we opposed was HB 1850. This bill would have hiked capital gains taxes. It would have raised it to a pretty significant level, and it was really targeting investors and I guess the rich, if you will. And so, again, investors get such a bad rap, but we need them in a lot of cases here in Hawaii. We need people that are going to invest in our communities, but oftentimes we drive them away with these different taxes. And so, Hawaii already has such a high tax burden, and you want to continue to just pile on to folks. What we've said is that, people are going to leave, and they already are. So what you're seeing is, all of these folks, whether they're of retirement age, whether they're young adults or young families, they're leaving because they can't afford it anymore. And they're moving to states like Texas that doesn't have these sorts of tax burdens. Even Nevada doesn't have anything like this.
Or Florida.
Yeah, exactly. Florida's far. It's really far. But yeah, so, this was just another thing where Hawaii, we should be trying to compete for capital. We shouldn't be trying to drive it away. And so, but these kinds of proposals oftentimes lead to that going elsewhere. So, when you tax these sorts of things, you try to disincentivize people doing that. When you put a tax on cigarettes, you want people to stop smoking cigarettes. When you put a tax on capital gains, you want people to stop investing. And that's the kind of message that we're sending to folks. Tom, did you want to talk?
Yeah, House Bill 1620 is the barrel tax. It's imposed on petroleum products or fossil fuels. So it adds to that. And I was just telling Ted and Rep. Gideon, when I was driving here, I passed a gas station. And they were changing the price on the sign, and it was being changed from 555 to 575. I was thinking, wow, one day they're going to change it 20 cents like that. Well, that's the kind of that's the kind of era we're living in, and the barrel tax would add to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now there was another bill, House Bill 2147, that wanted to establish state property tax. You know, as you know, property tax is done through the counties. The state wanted to kind of, you know, they wanted to dip their hand in that pot of money as well. So this would have like fundamentally changed Hawaii's tax structure.
Yeah, they actually tried that in 2018. It was going to be on the ballot. I mean, actually, it was on the ballot, but because of a last-minute suit by the counties, the measure was declared unconstitutional, and it was on the ballot, but it didn't count because the Supreme Court said, "Nope, you ain't doing this."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's important, again, when we're dealing with such an affordability and a housing crisis, that, you know, adding another layer to, if you're a homeowner, now you have to pay even more every year in a state property tax. That doesn't necessarily make sense or sit right with me. And so I'm really glad that this bill died. This one's a funny one, actually. Tom, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, there was a bill to add a tax on concert tickets. So it would be an extra $1 that would go to the state. And there would be, you know, certain types of performances, like, you know, when kids perform and stuff like that would not be subject to this. But we're thinking, oh my, you know, are people staying up nights thinking about this? Yes, they are.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about they tried to tax everything, we really mean that they tried to tax everything. And this is something, when you buy a concert ticket, you're already paying a tax on that. So this would have just been an additional little cherry on top, I guess, for legislators. That's a good question.
That's a very good question.
Special fund.
Yeah, another special fund.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, the question is, what are they doing with that money? And, you know, that was one of the arguments that I think both of our organizations were trying to make when it came to the income tax cuts, is how can you try to take away a promise from people? You know, in 2024, you all campaigned on this, and you went around saying, we passed the largest income tax in state history. And now when the going gets tough, you want to claw that back. You know, it doesn't work like that. If I am running low on money at home, and, you know, my spending is going crazy, I look to save. I look for ways to cut. I don't just go and try to go to my boss and say, I need more money. I'm spending too much. I just bought a new Tesla or whatever, so I need more money. That doesn't work in the real world. And so it shouldn't work with government. And so I think, to your point, like, what are they spending the money on? So we actually did a handout during session that looked at just wasteful spending. Again, this is stuff that it wouldn't have cut essential services. It would have really focused on things like special funds, government vacancies that could have been cut. And you know, government vacancies, what happens is these departments will keep vacant positions for 4 or 5 years plus, use the money that's budgeted in there as a slush fund. They don't actually intend on hiring anybody. So, you know, there's a lot of money there that is not going to pay for people. It's not going to pay for resources. It's just going into, you know, whatever the agency wants without any sort of oversight. And so that's a bad practice. Again, I think we found over $1 billion, and I won't bore you with that. We have it on our website, you know, just looking through all of those different funds. Again, not all of these things are politically possible. One of our ideas was to cut some of the funding from Aloha Stadium, which, you know, I love sports. I love football. I don't want to necessarily take that away. But if we're going to take back our promises to the taxpayers, then everything needs to be on the table. And so these sorts of pet projects don't need to be going through when we're in a quote unquote revenue crisis, as everybody wants to say at the legislature.
And I had talked to a little bit earlier about money that was being hoarded in these special funds. There was actually a bill that would that did make it to the governor's desk that addresses some of those. It's Senate Bill 2921. It's the very last bill on my handout. And it started off, interestingly enough, as a bill that would have raided 200 plus special funds. But when it came to how much money was going to be taken out of each special fund, it has zeros and everything. So it's like being blank.
Yeah.
So it went through the Senate Money Committee. It was reduced to 140 special funds. All zeros.
21, yeah.
The last one, yes. Went to the House. They came up with a different version. They said, well, let's just keep the bill alive. And they dumped the table entirely. So what they came up with was the first version of the bill that has numbers is this one. Senate Conference Draft 1 is it raids 18 non-general funds for a total of 47 million. And that is the tip of the iceberg, I promise you. It's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, that was disappointing. I mean, to go from 200 special funds to 18, we would have wanted more, and I think we're going to continue trying to go down that road and try to put these things into the general fund in the future. So now we've talked a lot about the doom and gloom and all the bad tax bills that came out. There were some good tax bills that unfortunately died. The first one was House Bill 1611, which dealt with exempting groceries from the GET. Most states out there do not tax groceries. They don't tax things that are essential that people need. Unfortunately, Hawaii is not one of those states. We have strongly supported this proposal for years. Unfortunately, this year, this proposal, which seemed more palatable to some legislators, it actually would have phased out the GET. So what it would have done is every year would have dropped the GET down 0.5% until it was non-existent anymore. That bill unfortunately died. There were some politics at play there that didn't get it through, but it's something that is a pet issue of ours. I know that we're going to continue, fighting for this because, again, food is a necessity. It's not a luxury or any sort of good like that. People need it. And so, we think that you repealing this is just going to give folks immediate relief and what they need. Yeah.
So how do the legislators who are opposed to that, how do they justify it?
Well, so the question was, how do legislators justify continuing to tax groceries? And what happens a lot of times is these bills die in darkness. So they don't actually have a vote necessarily where everybody can be on the record to know who opposes the bill, who supports it. A lot of times it will be a committee chair that will kill it. In this instance, it was Representative Gregory Illigan that killed the bill. And ironically, he was the bill's author. So, again, there was some weird politics at play with that bill. I'm not sure exactly what the reasoning was behind it, but that's why this one died this year.
It didn't even get a hearing, right?
No, it did.
It did, but it was killed.
Yeah. So it actually got 2 hearings. It made it through Gregory Illigan's committee. He passed the bill. And then in David Tarnas's committee in Judiciary, he noted that the bill's author requested that the bill be deferred, which essentially means killed. So, again, I don't know why he would ask to kill his own bill. That's something, you would probably have to ask him about. To kill these bills. I mean, I can't confirm or deny if they, get paid off to do these.
Trying to learn what I'm getting into.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's leadership in the House and the Senate, and the leadership will ask legislators to do things, and they do them,
Yeah.
or they're not there anymore.
Hawaii is one of 8 states that still charges G on groceries and medical.
I don't think so. I think we're at least on I believe on groceries, like we're one of only a couple of states. I have to double check that, but yeah, I mean there's not a lot. And same with medical.
Yeah, I mean there are only a handful of states.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's the other dimension of it. The question is, well, in other states with sales taxes that exempt groceries, the tax rate's much higher, and that's true. Our system is perversely fair in that everything gets taxed, goods get taxed, services get taxed, royalties get taxed, interest gets taxed, everything gets taxed, and then the tax gets taxed, right?
Although I will just jump in there, Tom, on everything getting taxed. There are how many pages of exemptions for the GET?
There are.
And so there's all these little different pet issues that people have exempted from the GET over the years. And so, just saying that groceries.
Every state sales tax has mountains and mountains of exemptions. Ours is no different.
Right.
But what we were talking about earlier,
We get taxed 3 to 4 times on that one item. So it comes from the mainland. Okay. They're taxing whoever's buying it. We're getting taxed on the shipping and paying for the shipping. Then it goes to the warehouse. And then from there, they sell it to maybe a retail, excuse me. Thank you. And they tax them. And then we get it and we get taxed. So we're paying about 13% around that amount on everything that we buy. So I'm also running and I want to stop that.
not here. Not here. In a different district. Joe's my buddy. I love him.
Okay, and so the last one that we have is Senate Bill 3337, which would have abolished the gas tax. Did you want to talk about this at all, Tom?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so this one, it really just proposed getting rid of Hawaii's gas tax. Especially as we see with a lot of electric cars now. I mean, how much do we really need the gas tax? But it's also, Tom mentioned it when it comes to the barrel tax. This is just continuing to, increase our costs. And so if we could take, money off the cost of filling up your car, I mean, I think that makes sense. And
Well, one of the things you have to keep in mind is that our barrel tax, you don't avoid it when you have an electric car. Why? Because HECO is burning fossil fuel, and they are subject to the barrel tax.
So
yeah.
all this money, on Sunday, I was talking.
Yeah.
On Sunday, I had a shocking conversation with Trevor Ozawa. He mentioned to me that Tommy Waters is getting paid $90,000 more than what he was paid. He's had 2 tax increases, and he's getting like 140 something thousand, where back when Trevor was in, he was getting 50 something thousand. So where is all these wage increases? I know they said something about they should get paid year round now, but Waters got paid 1 tax increase for that. I mean, not tax increase, one wage increase for that, and then another wage increase. So are they bleeding us dry to pay the staff? What is going on? How can they get that much more?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And there's a lot of concern when it comes to the wages of our elected officials. I mean, and it's not just city council. We've seen it with the state legislature as well. But these are issues that are decided on by they have independent salary commissions. So it's not necessarily Tommy Waters voting to increase his own salary. That being said,
Not directly anyway.
correct. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what you stole my thunder there, Tom.
Sorry about that.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think, he isn't directly raising his salaries, but that is I think a fair point. And where is that money coming from? A lot of times, it is coming from the general fund. And so,
Well, this is a county office, so it's coming out of property tax, basically.
right. But, same at the state legislature, it's the same thing. And so, I know that there is kind of a divide when it comes to the mindset. Originally, I'm from Virginia, where our legislators get paid $18,000 for their work. Yeah. So, it was kind of a shock to me when I saw that legislators here are getting 6 figures plus. And I think there's some folks that will say that there's positives to that. I think that there's no evidence showing that paying lawmakers more actually results in better lawmakers. So, I think there is a lot of concerns when it comes to like their actual pay and those major spikes, because I don't know anybody else that's getting such a high wage increase. Sure.
Sure.
Tom and Ted, I appreciate you taking time from your evening. Rep. Kitty and the same thing. I was just wanting to thank you guys for coming out tonight. I had just a couple of questions here to ask. Was the Jones Act, that's an expense that covers almost everybody here. Did that get any traction at all this year or any discussion?
So not at the state level. The Jones Act is a federal law, and so it would require change at the federal level. That being said, President Trump did issue a waiver on the Jones Act, and then he just issued an extension. So we're looking at, I believe, 270 days of a Jones Act waiver. Now, it's not a waiver on everything. You're not going to necessarily see it at the grocery store. It's a waiver on energy. It's a waiver on fertilizer, agricultural supplies. So, there is going to be some trickle down on it. We're in the process now of trying to study where these ships are actually utilizing these Jones Act waivers. And seeing the routes that are unfolding. We've seen some coming from New York to Hawaii. We've seen some going to Alaska. It's not just us that are going to be benefiting from this. We've even seen some from mainland to the mainland. So from Los Angeles to New Orleans or, to New York. So there's, I think, about 40 ships right now that have utilized this waiver. And we're just trying to kind of let the dust settle and try to, we're going to come out with a report analyzing, who's utilizing it and continue to push for a waiver there.
Yeah, and speaking of ships, some people may be interested in the Cruise Act, the cruise ships challenge to the green fee, which you may have read about in the news. The litigation's still ongoing. There was an effort in the legislature to basically replace the cruise ship portion of the green fee with a per passenger charge, which the industry would have been okay with. It died. Probably because the AG, the Attorney General, was telling legislators, "We're going to win this. We're going to win this." Well, we'll see if they do. So we will see. Our foundation has also analyzed the challenge that the cruise ships made to the tax. We think the challenge is substantial, and we think that the state has big problems, primarily because there's a difference in the way that the tax applies to cruise ships from the way it applies to regular hotels. Namely, when a hotel comes up with an American plan or a food and meal and room and meal package, the THC only applies to the room, not the meals. But not so for cruise ships. You get taxed on the meal portion too. So that I think is a discrimination against maritime commerce, which is probably enough to sink the tax.
And my last thing, and I'll give the mic back, was I just saw a survey in the paper where Hawaii cost of living here was one of the top states. And I know there's a cost of living in paradise or on an island state. Is there a scorecard on any of our state congressmen or senators that, who are the big spenders, who are the conservative senators that we can use as a tool to write and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a scorecard. For Grassroot, we're a 501c3, so we don't engage in any electioneering or anything like that. We also, the hard thing in Hawaii is that because it's such a super majority, a lot of times what you have, and we talked kind of about this earlier, is you won't actually have legislators that vote no on a bill or vote, they'll all vote for it, or something will happen and the bill will die a mysterious death. And so it's really hard to actually put a score on those legislators because there isn't necessarily accountability there. I can't look at the voting record and say, oh, this person voted to get rid of the GET on groceries. This person voted to increase your income tax. If we did a scorecard, everybody would almost be the exact same here.
Well, and Ted brings up an interesting point. His organization, like mine, we're 501c3 charities. We accept donations. Shameless plug there. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And so any other questions here? Sure.
Not that I would ever want to see this changed, but I'm a little surprised. I like to tell people that the absolute only thing that isn't taxed in the state of Hawaii is retirement pay. I'm surprised. Has the legislature ever entertained taxing retirement pay?
Oh, several times. There was a big effort during Abercrombie's administration to tax retirement pay. AARP came out and basically sank him. By Neil. So that's kind of what I remember from the news.
Yeah, I don't remember an effort like that. I mean, I came after Governor Abercrombie, but, nothing is sacred here in Hawaii, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if in, a year or 2 or 5 or 10, something gets proposed. When from what I've been told, there is a mandate on the current majority party to come up with different revenue generating bills every year. And so, what that means is revenue generating tax hikes or different, kind of tax bills in some way. There's not a mandate for tax relief or a cost of living relief for people. And so you're exactly right. That is really sad and something that we're constantly fighting at the legislature. So.
I heard that they're going to even tax the amount of water we're using, our electricity. They're trying to put in all these meters so that, you've gone over your limit and you haven't had that shot. So guess what? Boom, off.
Interesting. Did you
Smart cities.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've heard they're trying to put in meters to put in. So it tells us if you're in a condo, how much water you're using in your unit, and you're going to you're going to pay for that if you go over.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
4 gallons or whatever it is.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I think we have systems like that now. I mean, the when you pay your water bill, there's a big surcharge that happens once you hit a certain amount. That's how I understand how it works now. Okay, seeing no more questions.
Sir, did you have a question?
So thank you for what you two of you and Rep. Gideon has been advocating and for us. I agree with your positions. There should be first tightening of the belts. So let me ask a question to which there will not be an answer. How do we combat waste and fraud and getting the fat out of the budget first? How does the state do that? There's no agency that looks at that, or
Yeah, I think once we need to support transparency efforts. There's a lot of devices that's being used by the legislature and by agencies to conceal what they're spending. DOE, Department of Education, is one of the biggest offenders in my estimation. They have been successfully able to resist a whole bunch of information requests. They'll comply with them, but it takes like several years. So when you get the information, it's no longer usable. So we need more transparency. We need more citizen involvement. Once those numbers become available, we need smart legislators to look at the numbers and keep tabs on the respective agencies. And it all starts by bringing more sunshine into government. That's what I think.
No, I totally agree. I mean, we are cut from the same cloth when it comes to government transparency. There's a lot that is hidden behind closed doors and in the darkness. We've actually created a tool that we call Open Hearings that transcribes all the different government hearings out there, whether it's state legislature, city councils, the state land use commission, the planning commissions, you name it, we're transcribing it and trying to see what's happening. I mean, one thing that we've noticed with kind of the shrinking of traditional media, when I started, there were reporters from every single outlet at the state legislatures. Nowadays, there's probably 2, maybe 3 people there. So, with media downsizing, you just don't have the manpower anymore to cover all of these different meetings and hearings and whatnot. So what we're trying to do with this Open Hearings project is really just trying to get an understanding of what's happening, see what is being discussed at these hearings so that we can kind of shed light on this stuff. And let people know about what's happening in their governments. Because if you don't know what's happening, how can you get involved?
Probably nothing to do with what's been talked about, but when are we going to get our roads repaved? With all the money they're collecting from gas tax, and they're not spending a dime on our roads.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I knew. I think the man with the answers right here.
That is a great question. I've got a meeting with the director of the DOT, Ed Sniffen, in a couple of weeks. And these are the things I'm going to be bringing up to him: our roads, the right turn going from Keohole onto Kalaneanaole needs better signage or some delineators or something. Yeah. And we've got some speeding problems, on Lunalilo. So this is going to be my first meeting with him. There's a lot of different issues we're going to be addressing. But I would love to connect with you afterwards. I'll give you my card and as much feedback as I can get on the issues as far as the roads go that I can share with the director, the better.
I know I spoke with you about the pedestrian crossings at Kealaho and Hawaii Kai Drive. It's one of the most dangerous. They do not stop, and they do not stop speeding. They put up a sign the other day, one of those blinking ones, says 25 miles an hour. And I'm always yelling at the people because, I got hit there once. Fortunately, I wasn't hurt. but I'm a very avid walker. And we have many people that walk in Hawaii Kai early morning, and they're lit up. They light their body up as much as possible. But people just won't stop at that stop sign.
That's something that I brought up to DTS a couple of weeks ago as well. Things with the state and the city, they move a little slower. From my office, I tell you, we are going to start a campaign, at least putting up some signage, reminding people, drive aloha, no need speed, or some type of message just to, give people a reminder. Like, yeah.
Like to go up to the stables up there. I walk there every morning in Coco Head's stables, and they just won't. No, I forgot my train of thought. But anyway, yeah, no crosswalks. I can't find one in Kalama Valley. I've looked all over, and there's none. You got to kind of run across, and oh, it's terrible.
I would just like to add to the speeding part here is I think that speeding starts when they back out of their driveway. We live up in Kamahami there, and going down the hill, there's a stop sign, and very few, you really got to watch and clear because people go right through that stop sign. They don't even slow down, and it's just it's back to speeding again. And Lilydale Home Road, you get run over. I think the speed limit's 30, but you can't even really, 35 if people are passing you like you're going backwards, so. But.
So funny you should mention, there was a bill passed that they are going to be adding speeding cameras, and I believe they're going to be doing 2 per district to start off with. Well, I can make a suggestion to Director Sniffen, and Lunalilo Home Road is definitely one of them. Maybe that intersection on Keohole.
Gene Ward met with it was legislature and Roger Morton. Oh, yeah. And we suggested that they put blinking lights at that 3-way stop at Kealaho and Hawaii Kai Drive. We were told that the city at that time didn't think those were very effective. And I'm here to say I disagree. Those things are very effective. And I noticed in Kailua at that new roundabout at Kalapawai area, they have the blinking yield sign. I think it gets your attention more so than not.
Thank you for that. I'll bring that up to Roger. Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this part. I'm going to stick around afterwards if anybody wants to talk more about other issues in Hawaii Kai. But Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation, Ted Kefalas from Grassroot Institute. Thank you so much for joining us. You folks are a wealth of knowledge, and I honestly, I don't know what a lot of legislators would do without you. So thank you for being so involved. Thank you for your testimony. And they both come and share. They'll meet with the legislators to help inform us and keep us educated on a lot of these things. Because we had, about 2,000 bills in the beginning of the session? 3,000? We started off around 3,000. We ended up at 200 and change at the end. So it's really the experts like this that we look to help educate us on a lot of these important issues. So thank you so much again for coming. Please visit their website. Grassroot Institute is grassroot, not grassroots. Grassrootinstitute.org and TFHawaii.org, taxfoundationhawaii.org. So thank you. We have next month, we're going to have a very interesting talk story. We have Hawaiian Electric coming out. So I hope they keep that date with us. I know amid the increasing the rates, but next month, the last Thursday in June will be Hawaiian Electric. And again, if anybody has any questions, stick around after. I'll be happy to talk story with you. And get home safe. Aloha.